So with the Northwest Winter Food Challenge Tour concluded, I have a few thoughts I wanted to share about the trip as a whole, and you're going to want to stick around to hear about them, especially for those who are wondering, what exactly did happen with Ethan? And just to be safe, spoilers about this trip as a whole are up ahead, so if you haven't watched this tour, go ahead and watch it first, then come on back. A link to the entire playlist will be in the description down below. Now first off, and this is probably the most obvious, this trip did not exactly turn out like I had hoped, and I had such high expectations going into this trip, and I started out strong with 2 fairly convincing wins. And then after that, things got a bit rough. And just FYI, whenever I was referring to hashtag winter is coming, this is exactly what I was talking about. And I'm pretty sure this is a Game of Thrones reference, but it was meant for you watching, meaning get prepared, because this trip did take a wild turn. And sure, getting sick wasn't certainly part of the plans, and even skipping out on a ton of food challenges in order to rest up, but having a final record of 5-4 in just a 3-week time span? Oh man, that's a tough one to swallow. Especially considering the fact that 2 of those challenges were team challenges. And combine that with the fact that on the previous trip, I had over 40 wins with only 1 outstanding loss. And while that is a bummer, this trip as a whole, it wasn't all that bad. I gotta say, we were pretty lucky when it came to the road conditions, especially the fact that we were driving in a Toyota Prius. And first of all, we never had to use chains on our tires throughout the entire trip, which I was pretty thankful for that. And 2, for any major highway and roads that we're using on the trip, they were either closed the day before and opened up when we had to use them, or they were closed the following day. So that was pretty fortunate for us. Though, there was one instance where we were starting to make our way to the next city, and the weather got so bad so quick that we couldn't see much in front of us, so we decided to make an audible, turn back around, and stay put for a bit. But even then, it worked itself out eventually and it turned out alright. And with all the driving we were doing on the trip, I was able to see some sights along the way, including some very beautiful scenery. And there were also a few touristy spots we checked out. And as far as my favorites, it's gotta be visiting Mount Rushmore, which honestly, I never thought I would actually be able to see that in person, but I'm glad I did, because it's truly an incredible sight to behold. And speaking of incredible sights, and this should come as no surprise, is the continued documentation of the big man himself, Randy Santel, and his big old phone addiction. And unfortunately, I wasn't able to focus on it too much on the account of being sick, but I still managed to get a few good clips. Time to drop the beat.
Access granted.
Oh yeah, would you look at that? Looks like I wasn't the only victim of Randy's sickness. And as you saw, Ethan was catching his own bug. And I gotta tell you, if you're not careful, that phone addiction, it can spread to others fairly quickly. And I think this is actually a good time to talk about Ethan. And first off, I do want to talk about our rivalry. And although being sick wasn't ideal, I can't deny, it does make the rivalry a bit more interesting with how everything turned out. But I assure you, I will not let this repulsive ravager get the best of me like that ever again. I swear it. And while we're on the topic of disgusting behavior and sorts, in the first Team Pizza Challenge video of this trip, I may have mentioned at that point in the trip, Ethan had left. And I also mentioned that something happened that I may or may not have felt guilty about. And I'm not gonna leave you hanging, but I'm warning you right now, it's not pretty. And there will be some parts that you might find to be too much information. So you have been warned, but here we go. Oh, and just a little FYI for some clarification. This wasn't the reason why Ethan left. He had already planned on leaving to head back home at this point of the trip before we even started. But anyways, while I was sick on this trip, which by the way, I cannot emphasize enough just how rough it was literally one of the sickest times I've ever felt in my life. Especially how after the breakfast pizza challenge, I was getting no sleep because, well, and let's just say that I was dealing with some very gnarly bathroom issues. Oh yeah, it was real bad. But anyways, there was a point where I just basically lost my entire appetite. So of course during that time, I didn't want to do any food challenges, but I wasn't really eating much of anything. So when Randy and Ethan made a pit stop to a grocery store to pick up some supplies, they got me a couple of these V8 cans that were on sale. Thinking it would help, to get some fluids in, get something in my body. So once we continued on, I ended up drinking one can because that was basically all I could handle. Then later on, the most incredible thing happened. And when I say incredible, I mean vile, nasty, and absolutely disgusting. Because that can of V8 I had, it had done something to my body. And I don't know what sort of biological lab experiment was taking place inside my body, but it was creating a lot of gas in my stomach, which was causing me to burp on a regular basis. And this won't do it justice, but I cannot emphasize just how nasty these burps were. I mean, I literally could not believe my body was making this. It was so rancid smelling. And before any time I had to burp, I could feel this fizz start trickling up my tongue moments before I had the burp. And this is where Ethan comes in, because while we were on the road, Randy would drive, I'd sit in the passenger seat, and Ethan would sit in the back. And anytime I would get one of these burps, they didn't make any noise. I would just let out this super toxic smelling gas slowly seep from my mouth. And anytime I did this, I kid you not, Ethan would immediately get a whiff of it. Every 10 minutes, without question, I'd get a little burp, then just a few moments later, back behind me, I'd hear some sort of, oh, dude, oh my god, jeez. And like I said, it's one of the few times I feel bad for him because I'll be honest, it was a bit much and he definitely didn't deserve that. Though, it does give me a good laugh thinking about it now. And I want to reiterate this, these burps were so bad. Like if I had burped into Randy's face while he was driving, just one of those guys being guys sort of thing, I'd honestly be afraid that if I did that, it would punch him in the face so hard and catch him so off guard, it might cause him to swerve off the road and get us into an accident. By the way, I was actually doing this for about 3 whole days before he realized that they were burps. No joke. He thought I was just straight up diapering in my pants. That's how nasty these smell. And when he realized that these were burps, he looked over to me and said, "Wait, is that really from you burping? Oh my god." And while you let that visual stay in your head rent-free, be sure to take a few seconds to leave a little magic of your own by liking the video, and also comment down below what you thought of this tour. Did you like it? Did things play out like you were expecting? Let me know down below, and I'll see you in the next food adventure.